So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the last AstroCafe session um, from our society. I think after this, the AstroCafes will be temporarily stopped. So this will be our last sessions, and the physical stargazing, in fact, has been started. So from now on, our activities will be slowly, or in fact, after this, will be turned into physical meetings. So, in these last sessions of Astro Cafes, we are very fortunate and happy to have our speaker today, Mr. Sergei Bobrov from Moscow.
Hello.
And I think maybe some of you has seen him before in one of his talking about the astronomy in Russia. And this time, he will be talking about the names of the planets. And in fact, um, he he has a linguistic degree, which I do not know before that. So I think and I think so this talk today will be interesting, and this is involving a lot of etymology and a lot of interesting facts about the names of the planets. So I'll pass the mic to Sergey.
Thank you, Chai. Thank you for nice introduction. Good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the privilege to deliver today's lecture. As Chai already said in the foreword, today's lecture will be dedicated to like a cross between several sciences, astronomy and etymology and the history. So I will try to provide some historical background. And so the theme is how the names of planets were used across the ages and cultures. From where historically the name stems from, and what's the historical background, and so on. So let's speak about the origin of the word. Why it's called planet? Why it's called planet? Because the word is Greek. It's ancient Greek word, planete. Planete, if we can read, it's P lambda alpha nu, and so on and so on. Planetes. So it sounds like planetes, which in fact means wanderer, rambler, or sailor. Traveler as well. I even heard somewhere that one of the famous Greek travelers and discoverers, his nickname was Planeta, like Alexandros Planeta. Means so it means to roam, to want to travel. So a traveler. So of course now we know why he travels, because probably since the very, very ancient time, since the very roots of astronomy, the very beginning of astronomy, people have already noticed the difference between the planets and the stars, because planets, they do move. And as we can see, a picture showing the movement of planet, I think, around the constellation the Leo. So probably the movement of planets was one of the first historically recorded astronomical discoveries. How long ago? We can speak about a few thousand years for sure. We can speak, I think, about 2,000 years. We can speak about maybe 3,000 years. Because in the very ancient discovered astronomical texts, okay, let's switch to the next one, and I will tell you which exactly text I mean. So here is the motion of the planets. As we see, it was noticed long ago, and it was mentioned in the very, very early astronomical text, like this. Let's start from the historical roots from ancient Mesopotamia. Now it's Iraq. By the time it was a cradle of human civilization. Sumer, Assyria, and Babylon. Actually, Sumeria, Assyria, and Babylon were the places where we can find the most historically old text about astronomy. For example, it's called the Venus Tablets of King Amisaduka. So we can speak about it's a 17th century before current calendar. So it's from religious text Enuma Anu Enlil. So and actually it's called the Mul Apin. Mul Apin. Mul means stars. In ancient Babylonian language, it's Mul is a star. For example, the Pleiades constellation, it's called simply Mul Mul, stars of the stars. Yeah, and this Mulapin is a plow of stars. Plow, in this case, it means to put the boundaries in the sky, means to delineate the sky into constellations. And the first mentioning about the Venus was from this text, Ishtar, setting in the dusk on Shapatu 15 and 7 days in the abyss, rise in the morning star on Shapatu 22. So the motion of the planet was already registered and closely followed. So they already knew when Venus will appear, disappear in the conjunctions with the Sun. So this was one of the ever first ever mentioning of a planet in the text. So how it was called? So as in ancient Mesopotamia, there was few languages, and they were changing with the time. And the most ancient is Sumerian language. And we can see the name. For example, Mercury was called Enki, Venus was called Inanna, Mars was called Gugul Anna, Jupiter was Enlil, it's a deity, also Saturn Ninurta and Nanna. So we can look. In general, the planets were simply called the goats or jumping ones. So basically, the word showing, the word used to denote a moving star was called Bibu, the goat, because the stars are fixed, but the planets are like moving like a goat, like a jumping. So actually, the planets were simply called the goats, and we can see different names. In Babylonic name, it was Mercury was simply Bibu, the goat. Venus was called Zilbat, which means a big city or huge city. Mars was Zalbatanu, is a threat or plague. Jupiter was important. It was called Mulubabar, the sun star. Kakabu Pesu is a white star, or Nibiru. I think many of us heard about this word Nibiru. All this pseudo-scientific bala, so to say. But Nibiru actually means the ferry crossing the river. Scientific name is just crossing the river. Saturn was called Kaimanu, and the moon was called Sin. Here we can say, we can see that later in Babylon, they were used another different naming convention as god, as deity. For example, Nabu was Mercury was become Nabu, is a prophet, a messenger. Venus was Ishtar later. Mars became Nergal. Jupiter became Marduk. Saturn became Ninurta, Ninib. Moon was Sin. So those are the names of the planets used in Babylon, and those names, they were in usage. We can speak for about minimum 1,000 years, maybe more. So
I'm sorry,
that's how they
Sergey.
were called.
May I
Yes,
have a
yes.
question?
Of course,
Like
please.
for the Jupiter, you mentioned that
Yes.
there are different names.
Oh,
Like
yes, indeed.
yeah. So is it for example the Jupiter? It named like sun star, white star. Is it
Yes.
is the name called according to the time of the planets appear in the sky?
I think probably yes,
Mm-hmm.
because you see in a different test. Well, the only thing I know for sure that the word kakab, actually it means a star.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, you can trace this name. I forgot which star in the Scorpio, but one star in Scorpio is called kakab. Maybe I forgot Sigma Scorpio, Delta Scorpio, but it's called kakab. Actually, it's a Babylonian name. But Kakab means
Ah,
literally simple as star, simply star, nothing else. Why it was called Mulubabar, the sun star, or Nibiru, I've heard different possible explanation. Because Nibiru, again, is a ford, it's a river crossing, and the same word was used sometimes for Milky Way in Babylonian as well.
ah,
Yes,
I
maybe they thought the Milky Way is a river in the sky, which comes in many cultures.
see.
So can be. But to be honest, I can't say for sure. But it was used with the different names. As
I
I know,
see.
Mulubab was the most popular name in the text. Why it was called the Sun Star, we don't know. At
I
least it
see. I
was
see.
called this way.
Interesting. Thank you.
Just for curiosity, we can take a look at the names of a Babylonian constellation. As I told, for example, Pleiades was called Mulmul, sister stars or stars of a star. Taurus was bull of heaven. Orion was a good shepherd of stars. Perseus was called old man. Auriga was a saber. Gemini was, yeah, same constellation. Cancer, Leo. Absinu, okay, the Virga was a crop field in the Babylonian constellation. Libra was Libra. Scorpius was Scorpius. Sagittarius was a god Pabilsag. Capricornus was a fish goat. Aquarius was the greatest one. And it shows the meaning of water because we speak about the Middle East. It's a dry land. So the water was important. That's why the Aquarius was called the greatest one. It gives water. So great tails of Pisces. Swallow bird is Epsilon Pegasi. And part of Andromeda was called god Anuntu. And Aries was a farmer or hired worker. It's one of the, if we look here at the bottom of the page, we can see the zodiac used in Assyria, and we can trace back most of more or less the same constellations. So we can speak that the modern European zodiac takes its roots from Babylonian, definitely. It's proven, it's already a fact. So there's also one more picture showing some Babylonian star signs, a constellation, like you see. There was even a cargo boat, and mad dog, and wild boar, and raven, and serpent, and the king star, and plow. Yeah. How many constellations were known in Babylon? Well, we can speak about maybe 30. Maybe 30. So here, for example, old man is a Perseus. Here, yeah, horse, wolf, lion, crab. So, and here, those constellation are, you see, this circle shows the ecliptic. So those constellation to the south from ecliptic. See, here is a Sirius, here is Orion with a rooster. Rooster is currently the rabbit constellation of rabbit or Lepus. In Babylon, it was a rooster. See, here's a Taurus, here's Orion, which is called the true shepherd of Anu. So that was a constellation of Babylonian zodiac. It's quite interesting. Let's switch to Egypt. So the naming convention of planets in Egypt were made in two ways. One name was astronomical, one was as a god or deity. Definitely, it follows the same rules in Babylon. One for planet as a astronomical body, one for the same planet as the name of God. So normally, this tradition continues in Egypt. Planet can be named as in the sky and as God as deity. So Mercury, Sebegu, or Set or Sebek, set in the evening dusk, God in the morning twilight. Venus was Ba or Sebajai, and as deity it was Isis, and a star which crosses the heaven. quite common. I've been to Egypt. I've seen in a few temples. I've seen some astronomy, how to say, astronomical themed pictures on the walls, and the Venus was sometimes shown as a bee or wasp, as astronomical symbol. Probably it was a bee or wasp. I don't know why. Then Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, they were almost never mentioned in the Egyptian texts, at least very rarely. Only a handful of times you can find in ancient Egyptian astronomical texts the names of Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. It's really, really that rare. But the name was Red Horus, Horus of the Horizon. It was for Mars. For Jupiter, it was his name is Horus, who shine above both lands. Both lands, it means upper and lower Egypt. And name is Horus, who opened the mysteries. Saturn is also mentioned only a handful of times. It's called Hor Amnu. So you see, most of the planets were called Horus. Horus, Red Horus, Horus of the Horizon, Horus of the Bull of Heaven, and so on. That was the names of planets in Egypt. I have to especially underline that looks like, okay, for me, looks like that the planets were not so important to Egyptian astronomy, at least not as much as the constellation in zodiac, because the most important star was Sirius, because it showed the flooding of the Nile River, and the planets, they were definitely less important. Probably. Still, the name, we can trace back. So here are just a few pictures about the Egyptian zodiac and different modern signs. So here is a constellation. Maat is like you see, you can see in the picture, somebody's holding the sky. Is one of the gods holding the sky. Greece. Let's speak about Greece. So the first names, like in 4 or 5 centuries before current calendar. So long ago, I was amazed that the names were totally different. For example, Mercury was stillborn, gleaming, shining.
I'm sorry,
So
Sergey.
also like a small spark.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, Sergey. So now you switch to the Greece slide, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
it seems the
Yes.
screen is still stay at the Egyptian zodiac.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, let me check. Hmm. Oh, okay. I will try. Really? Oh, sorry. I will try to.
Okay. Yep, I can
So you want
see
me to trace
that.
the presentation again? Yeah. Clone open. Okay.
I
Give me
think
one
maybe
second.
start from Greece.
Okay. I will
Yeah,
try.
I think Greece should be
Give me 1
fine.
second. I will restart. 1 second. I'm restarting now. Does it? I don't see. No.
Not yet.
Hmm. Let me check again. Maybe it's a problem with my laptops. Let me check. 1 second.
Okay, I can see your see the PowerPoint again.
Yeah. I'm trying to. I'm trying to open to open and reopen.
Yeah, I can see.
Then
Yeah. Yeah.
now it's okay.
Yes, it is loading up.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's just very slow. Just very slow.
Yeah. Now I can see. Yep. Degrees.
Okay.
Okay.
So, so these places, these names of the planets, they appear completely different. For example, Mercury was stillborn, gleaming, shining. Venus was has two names, which actually happen frequently, and in different cultures, it followed more the same routine. As a rule, Venus had two different names: one for the evening, one for the morning. It's quite common for most of the cultures, and actually, even Greeks they thought those are different planets. Only around when the Pythagoras, a mathematician and astronomer, he was the first one who discovered or suggest that this is actually the same planet. So evening star and the morning star is the same planet. But okay, Mars was called Pyrois, Pyro. We still have this root, fiery, flaming. Jupiter was Phaeton, and Saturn Anon. So the names were Mercury. The names were Stillborn, Hesperos, and okay, you see the name Phosphorus, bringer of light, because photos is the light, and phoro is to carry. So actually, now let's recall the chemical element phosphorus. It has the same name, the one who brings the light. So uh, then later they used again the same convention. Later they reused the names as the gods as deities. So Stillborn becomes Hermes, Venus, Hesperus becomes Aphrodite, Pyrois become Ares, Areo, Phaeton becomes Zeus, the main deity, god creator, and the Phenon become Kronos or Chronos, which also means time, because Saturn takes quite a while to perform one orbit around the sun. So those were old classic Greek names. So now let's speak about the Romans, ancient Rome. So basically, what Romans did, they simply copied the Greek names, names of Greek deities, of Greek gods, and assigned their own equivalent. Since equivalent for Hermes was Mercury, Aphrodite was Venus, Ares was Mars, Zeus was Jupiter, and Kronos was Saturn. Actually, they simply copied the Greek names to their own mythological equivalent. There are a few texts about Venus. Fourth star is Venus, and his name is Lucifer. Now about the name of Lucifer. While actually Lucifer is a direct translation of phosphorus. Phosphorus into from Greek to Latin. See, her name is Lucifer. His name is also Hesperus, and there are many tales of him. He looks bigger than other stars. Some say he's a son of Aurora Fall, and he's a very handsome young man. He even rivaled Venus goddess. That's why he is also called Venus. He can be seen in the morning, in the evening, and that's why naturally Lucifer and Hesperus. In the second text, below the sun, a great planet is orbiting called Venus, which can be seen, and it's called Lucifer, bringer of light, because it brings the day like a second sun. In the evening, it's called Hesperus and shines like second moon. Here I put a picture of a crescent Venus. Definitely Romans, they had some observation of Venus, which as we know, as we already know, and it's proven, in some exceptional cases, they are visible with the naked eye. And definitely few texts just give us a hint that some Romans definitely they've seen the phases of Venus. There are some historical accounts. Okay, so now we are coming to modern names, which we are now. So actually, those are Roman names.
It yeah, it freeze again.
Oh, sorry. I think there's a problem with my laptop, probably. Let me.
I think maybe you don't need to restart the presentation. Just exit from the full screen and enter the full screen again.
Oh, okay, I will try. I will try. Okay, I will try. Maybe it's my PowerPoint glitch. Does it show anything?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Can I continue? If you see.
Sure.
Okay, okay. So let's then switch to Arabic and of the Roman Empire and onset of Dark Ages in Europe. The center of astronomy research moves to Middle East, to Arabian Caliphate. Due to significance of astronomy in Islam, new planets are actually Arabian names. So now we're switching to the naming of planet in Arabian and Middle Eastern cultures, which are in fact, okay. So here is some roots and have some etymological basis for the names of planets in Arabic. So Mercury is Utarit, from ancient, very old word, pre-Arabic, pre-Semitic tarada, which means the fast-moving one, the rapid, swift. And actually it's the same word in Old Assyrian Attarat, the messenger. So Mercury is always a messenger in every culture. So Venus was Zuhra or Zahra. It's a shine, light, brightness of beauty. It's from the Semitic Old Middle Eastern root Zahar, shine, glow, radiate. So Mars, Merich, name is uncertain. It can be cheerful, happy, can be, you see, I've tried to propose some explanations, but the name is unclear. It can be from Persian, from Iranian origin, Marika, the deadly one, which is quite common name for the Mars, because Mars was always considered as bringer of bad luck, as like an enemy planet in most of the cultures. So maybe it's a firewood, we don't know exactly. Jupiter, which is Al-Mushtari. In modern Arabic, it means the customer client. Probably it's just a coincidence. Most probably that this Mushtari means persistent, reliable, or maybe from Babylonian Misaru, to become rich, to live in abundance, to have good luck. Again, I must admit, in most of the culture, Jupiter is considered like a lucky star, like a bringer of good luck. So I think hence the name. Saturn was Zual. Zual, probably the distant or remote, linger away from the others. And even now in Yemen, in South Arabian place, it's called Kaiwan, slow one. Actually, it was from ancient Babylonian Kaimanu, Kaiwan. So in some parts of Arabian Peninsula, they still use Babylonian name for Saturn, for Zuhal. And now, since we are in Penang Astronomy Club, definitely I couldn't miss about Bahasa Melayu. Definitely those names of planets used in the Malay language, actually they are Arabian names. They're Arabian names. And I remember when I was in Penang, and I've seen some book of in Bahasa Malay. I was so surprised. Why Utarid? Why Zuhra? Why Marik? And actually, it's when I was the time when I decided to do some research, because I was really puzzled why it was Utarid, why it was Zuhra, and so on. So the names used in Malay language, they are Arabic name. They're taken directly, without translation, from Arabic into Malay language. So now we know. China. Since the history of Chinese astronomy is huge, it's definitely huge, and they're discovering more and more even now. But what about the planets? What about the planets? There are two groups again: ancient planets names and modern one. The first text, Chinese text that actually mentions the planet, is a text of Shen and Ganden. So those two persons, they were astronomers and astrologists about the fourth century before the current calendar. So then there was astronomer Sima Tian, who introduced the currently modern used Chinese planet name based on 5 elements: metal, wood, fire, water, and earth. How he assigned these names? Simply by color of the planet. So Mars is red, hence it's fire. Yeah. Why Mercury was called water, I don't know. Maybe somebody can provide can provide me some hint, some idea. I don't know. So Mercury in modern Chinese, Mercury is known as water star, but definitely before it was called Chenxing in ancient China, which is the name of earthly branches, but dragon zodiac sign refer to the house between them. So it was morning star. In ancient Chinese, it was simply called morning star without any water star, without any elements. Venus, gold star, was called. I mean, now it's called gold star. And in ancient Chinese was Ciming, where Ci means start and means bright. So simply bright star. Also, there was a name Chang'e, long distance, and maybe also the 7 of 12 heavenly stems. Those are names used when Venus appeared in the sky as dusk. So, as a suggestion, the planet was visible as a golden ball. That's why the name gold star, and it's still used. Also, it was called Taibai or Taiban Zinxing, which means big and white. But the name is a reference to Teo's deity. So now we can say, now we see that the Venus was the most important planet in ancient Chinese astronomy. And definitely not only in ancient Chinese astronomy, in most of the cultures, because it's simply that bright. It's the most popular planet. In some cultures, there are no even mentioning about the Jupiter and Saturn, but Venus is always there. Venus and the Moon. Yeah. So now is a modern name for the Mars, fire planet, but the ancient name for Mars in China was Yinhua, which means dim, confused, and a really funny thing. Pliny, astronomer, it was called the Mars inobservable Sidus, a star difficult to observe, because its motion in the sky, it's really complex, and it's sometimes, as Pliny wrote, I remember he wrote, sometimes the star simply disappears, and no one can see it for months. So Jupiter, wood planet, again, it's given name is given with the color. Age star or year star, and ancient Chinese observed this movement of Jupiter to 60 years cycle. Then Saturn is an Earth planet, and the old name was a stabling star. Yeah, probably it means like a stability. Again, in most of the cultures, Saturn is somehow connected with the time, with longevity, with the long circle. So hence the names. Just a few words about the Australian and Polynesian planet names. So in the Maori language, definitely there's a name for Mercury, and Venus is a Kopu, and Tavera as evening star. Again, we see the same approach. In most of the cultures, before the advent of modern astronomy, Venus had always two names: as a morning star and the evening star. You see, in this case, even they're totally different. Tawera and Mere Mere tu Ahiahi. Totally different names. Mars is Matavera, Jupiter is Hineitiveka, Opererau, and also named for Saturn. You see, it's a funny coincidence that sometimes you see, as in Egyptian culture, sometimes Mars or the Jupiter and Saturn are called with the same name. Like in Egypt, it was called Horus, and Horus was Jupiter, and Saturn was also Horus. So we see the same approach. So basically, it had two different names. Then Australian astronomy. Again, Venus was the most popular, as everywhere. So, but still, the other planets they mentioned. And again, it's a very, very interesting thing to see that you see most of the planets mentioned very, very scarcely, but the Venus is always there. Venus is the most popular object in the sky after the sun and the moon, and normally it appears in every folk tales, in the folklore, in the culture tradition. Venus is always there, and Venus is, since the Venus can be close to the moon sometimes, a common trope and a common theme in the folk astronomy is the Venus is the daughter of the moon. Sometimes they're husband and wife. Sometimes the moon is a hunter and the Venus is his wife. Sometimes it's a father and son. So they are somehow connected. In most of the cultures, there's always a story about the Venus and the moon. It can be story of a family. It can be story of two brothers, something like this. Yeah, and same applies to Australia for sure. Some name for planets. Mercury was mentioned only a few times, maybe 5. Yeah. See, some people describe the planet as a little girl named Gavaman that relates to legend of a moon man. So there was some legend about the moon and the man on the moon. I don't know, and the Mercury. Mercury also represents a red kangaroo in some Kamilaroi traditions. People say red kangaroo was a star low in the western sky after sunset, and it was very important to ceremony. They also say that the star was red, difficult to see, and only there some of the time, so a few times in a year. It's definitely Mercury. Again, as I mentioned before, Venus is the most popular object in the sky. So there are many traditions of Venus. Mention of Venus is common everywhere, and definitely it's somehow connected with the with the moon as a moon wife or so. So they knew well the motion of Venus and disappearing for about 50 days and re-emerging the evening star about another 9 months. It dips below the horizon again for only 8 days before emerging as a morning star. And there was a lot of ceremonies connected and devoted to Venus, actually, especially in Australia. As in parallel, more or less the same. It's called like a Venus cult, probably, or Venus-centered ceremonies. This was also in South Africa, in Botswana, in South Africa, in Zimbabwe. Folk astronomy or folk beliefs, Venus plays a serious role also. So this is a few words about the ceremony, about the first time when Venus rising, in the first heliacal rising of Venus. So the ceremony is planned well in advance, so people can travel from different places. It was probably like a tribal gathering, and you see they even have like a pole pointing at Venus. So look, people, it's rising again. It's rising again as a morning star, as a newborn child in the morning sky. So, and the text was like Banumbir, morning star, rising, something like this. Rising on the ladder, climbing in the sky by the ladder. Mars. is poorly documented. It's almost unknown, but still, in some people, it was called Gumba, meaning fat. Really don't know why. So the other people, Amani period of Central Desert, is described as something that has been burnt in flames. Again, it's quite common for Mars. It's bright, it's orange, so definitely it's somehow linked to the fire. It's quite common again. And notable thing that some people in Calcutta in Western Desert associate Mars and Antares. By the way, name of Antares, Alpha Scorpio. If we translate it into Latin, the most correctly is going to be anti-Mars, because Ares or Eris is Mars in Greek language. So the one who is against Ares, anta, anti. So next time you can translate Antares as anti-Mars, actually, or against Mars, anti-Mars. So Jupiter and Saturn is not always clear from the folk tales, but still, some people in Australia they called have name for Jupiter. You see, Wurnda Wurnda Yarowa. And in this tradition, Jupiter is depicted as a man who is sitting by the fire and roasting yams, roasting yam. And Saturn was associated with a small bird, probably. And of course, there are local stories and local tropes and about the Venus, you see, and Saturn, which were brothers, and Jupiter was the dog. Yeah. So in the folk traditions, definitely planets also have their own names and roles and stories. And here is just some information. What's the name? Long ago, I recalled I was so surprised when I heard the name of a science which is called astronomics. Not astronomics, but astronomics. It's a stellar name because Nima in Greek means name. So it's like a story science that basically studies the naming of celestial objects. Yeah, and this is how actually those planets were named. And I try to give some historical background. Definitely, I'm sorry I couldn't include everything in this short presentation because, for example, if I would want to cover the Mesoamerican civilization, we would need 2 more presentations like this because lots of special attention in the Mesoamerican civilization was given to planets. And okay, probably it's not even so easy to squeeze lots of info. I know I tried, but it would require them like 20 more pages, only for Maya and Aztec and Mesoamerican astronomy. That's really a huge topic, so I decided to omit it. And I think I'm about to close the presentation because we've been through already. And thank you for your attention. Thank you for being a great audience. And I'm really thankful to everyone. And I hope you enjoyed. And thank you. And wish you all clear sky, which is important. And congratulations that we can gather again in a normal way in a star parties, which means good. So clear skies to everyone. And if somebody has questions, I'll be most happy to answer or discuss. So please, thank you.
Thank you, Sergey. It's a very interesting presentation and some maybe funny names. I
Yeah,
recall the
definitely.
one of the last one is saying that I mean a man sitting by the river roasting yams.
Roasting,
That
exactly.
is
Yeah.
funny. That is
It's even,
funny.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I even
Sitting
heard
by
that
the fire
that
roasting
name
yams.
was, yeah. Roasting yams. And because the I think because the Jupiter has a golden color, maybe some kind of a yellowish
Yeah.
color. So probably people thought, aha, he's sitting by the fire and roasting yam. Yeah. Can be.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Maybe the guy who
Okay,
named it
so
was roasting yam.
can be,
Yeah.
can be. Okay, so it was a presentation, and Thank you all. So, thank you for being a nice audience. So, I really hope there was not too much overload by information. Sometimes
Yeah,
because
it's
all these
just
names
right.
are not so
Yeah.
easy. Yeah, not so easy. I know it's a lots of historical information. Lots of background, and but anyway, this is how the thing goes. Lots of things were unknown, even unknown for me, like a Chinese name, planets definitely. But we can say about in general. Let me underline that the first, I think probably planets were already noted like 2,000 years before the current calendar. Roughly 2,000 years, people already knew about the planets and had the names for them. So we can speak that the history of the planet name stems for 4,000 years, roughly,
Mhm.
give or take 3 or maybe 4,000 years. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, maybe one question
Yes,
from
please.
me. So, what is the importance of the planets to these ancient civilization in general?
Very good question. I think you see, as an example, we can take, I think, Egypt would be a good example. Uh, Actually, the movement of planets, I don't know, because it cannot be linked to agriculture. Definitely no.
Mhm.
Agriculture is moon. Agriculture is which planet? Sun and the moon and Sirius. I think just out of curiosity, because people were really intrigued by the complex motion. Because you see, it makes a loop in the sky, and
Mhm.
it's a kind of a strange star. Definitely strange. It doesn't behave like normal. And I think it was just people curiosity. And
Mhm.
well, I think Venus was definitely popular. It was bright, and Venus could be important. You know why? Because it rises before sunrise. It's a
Mhm.
time indicator. It's a time indicator. And I heard. Let me continue just briefly. There was one story about how the Sirius was named one of in Serbian language, one of the Yugoslavian language. It called Lajikervan. Lajikervan means to uh, um, to deceive the caravan of maybe donkeys, I don't know, or camels. So, what the story behind? So people say it's called Sirius was called destroy or deceive the caravan. Why? Because there was a caravan carrying the goods from one land to another, and people those who rode in the caravan, they thought that Sirius is rising in the morning. They thought it was Venus, and they went
Mhm.
into some forest and they were killed. So it was like Sirius become the killer of the caravan because people thought it was Venus, and soon it's sunrise, and it's the east,
Ah, I
like
see, I
this.
see.
So maybe, yeah, maybe Venus was used as a time point, or as a time indicator.
Mhm.
Sunshine, sunrise will be soon. Maybe this is my explanation. And
Mhm.
as for the other planets, maybe timekeeping,
Mhm.
maybe timekeeping, because we know one great circle of a Saturn and Jupiter, probably as a calendar as well. Definitely, it wasn't for those who worked in the field; it was
Mhm.
for professional astronomers.
Yeah.
Nothing. But this is the only possible explanations. Definitely.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm
In
just
case if
thinking maybe for pollination, planets can place an important role, but I don't know about that because like pollination they are very good in navigation. Like
navigation can be
yeah,
can
they are very good
be
in
yes.
navigation. So I don't know if the
I thought about
planets
the
plays
same.
a role. Yeah.
Yes, I thought about the same, and I think definitely they couldn't skip using planets because, for example, yes, Venus is rising in the east before sunrise. For sure, they've been using it. For sure, they've been using
Yeah.
it. I'm not sure about the other planets, you see, but Venus, and Mercury, they can be a time indicator, sunrise indicator,
Hmm.
or east indicator. Call it this way. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
I think yes, yes. This is my explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
It's quite interesting. I think it's really hard to cover such a huge scope. I mean, like to cover all the civilizations in the earth.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, if I wanted to make a more detail, I would be using in this case, I'll be looking 100 pages minimum. Yeah. So
yeah.
sorry for just a brief material. Maybe not sufficient. Definitely not sufficient,
Yeah,
but
but
as to
I
give a
think
general outline.
this is sufficient enough to pick some interest from the audience, I
Yes,
think.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So thank you. I was most delighted to uh, deliver this presentation, and thank you, everyone. So I think we can switch off. Yeah.
Yeah, so Michael, so
Yes,
we'll
please.
end it. Yeah, thank you very much for
Thank you, ladies and
the
gentlemen.
talks
Thank,
by
thank,
Sergei Bobrov, and thanks to all the audience and clear
thank you.
skies, everyone.
Clear
Thank
sky,
you.
clear sky. Thank you, thank you. All the
Thank
best.
you.
Thank you.